The train screeched away into the distance, leaving behind a cloud of dust and the cold sting of silence. Dawn was only beginning to stretch its pale fingers across the sky, tinting the world in a soft, uncertain light. On the far end of the empty platform lay a young woman curled, trembling, her arms wrapped tightly around a tiny baby swaddled in a thin blanket. She wasn't sleeping, she wasn't resting, she was simply there, left behind like forgotten luggage, the baby's. Soft whimper was what finally stirred her. Her eyelids fluttered open, heavy and confused. The wooden planks beneath her felt strange, unfamiliar. For a moment, she didn't know where she was or who she was. She clutched the baby closer, instinctively protective without knowing why. A sharp ache pulsed through her head, and when she lifted her hand to touch her scalp, her fingers met a tender bump. Someone had struck her. Someone had meant for her to be left behind. Her gaze darted around the platform. Empty benches, a flickering lantern, a rusted sign reading Willow Creek Station. Nothing looked familiar. She searched her mind for a name. Her name, but it was like reaching into a dark room with no walls. Nothing answered her. The only certainty was the baby in her arms, squirming against her chest, relying on her with absolute trust. Fear squeezed her heart. The newborn was hungry. She could feel the tiny mouth rooting weakly against her shoulder. She whispered, "It's okay, it's okay," though she wasn't sure if she was comforting the child or herself. A distant crunch of footsteps on gravel made her tense. She held the baby tighter, prepared to run, though she barely had the strength to stand. The footsteps grew louder, steadier, until a tall figure appeared at the edge of the platform. A man, broad shoulders, dusty hat pulled low, long coat flapping behind him in the morning breeze. He moved with the quiet heaviness of someone used to loneliness. He stopped a few paces away, not wanting to scare her. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He simply looked first at her, then at the baby. His eyes, dark and unreadable, softened almost imperceptibly. "You alone?" he finally asked, voice deep and quiet. The question broke something inside her. A hot tear slipped down her cheek. She opened her mouth to answer, but no words came. She didn't know her name, didn't know where she had come from. She only knew she was terrified. The cowboy knelt slowly, placing himself at eye level. He wasn't a man given to talking, anyone could see that. But something in her fragile, desperate state made him reach out. Gently pushing a packet of jerky and a water canteen closer to her, she flinched but didn't pull away. "You hurt?" he asked. She nodded faintly. "Someone leave you here?" Another nod. And the baby? Her arms tightened again around the little bundle, but she didn't know how to answer that either. The cowboy watched her closely, reading the blank confusion and fear on her face. "You got a name?" he asked at last. Her silence was the answer. He exhaled slowly, stood, and extended a rough, calloused hand toward her. "Come on, you're freezing out here." His voice wasn't commanding, just steady. "Safe. You and the little one." "You're coming with me?" She hesitated, trembling, then slipped her hand into his dot. In that moment on that abandoned platform, the nameless girl and her nameless baby took their first step into a new life. The train screeched away into the distance, leaving behind a cloud of dust and the cold sting of silence. Dawn was only beginning to stretch its pale fingers across the sky, tinting the world in a soft, uncertain light. On the far end of the empty platform lay a young woman curled, trembling, her arms wrapped tightly around a tiny baby swaddled in a thin blanket. She wasn't sleeping, she wasn't resting, she was simply there, left behind like forgotten luggage. The baby's soft whimper was what finally stirred her. Her eyelids fluttered open, heavy and confused. The wooden planks beneath her felt strange, unfamiliar. For a moment, she didn't know where she was, or who she was. She clutched the baby closer, instinctively protective, without knowing why. A sharp ache pulsed through her head, and when she lifted her hand to touch her scalp, her fingers met a tender bump. Someone had struck her. Someone had meant for her to be left behind. Her gaze darted around the platform. Empty benches, a flickering lantern, a rusted sign reading Willow Creek Station. Nothing looked familiar. She searched her mind for a name, her name, but it was like reaching into a dark room with no walls. Nothing answered her. The only certainty was the baby in her, arms squirming against her chest, relying on her with absolute trust. Fear squeezed her heart. The newborn was hungry. She could feel the tiny mouth rooting weakly against her shoulder. She whispered, "It's okay, it's okay," though she wasn't sure if she was comforting the child or herself. A distant crunch of footsteps on gravel made her tense. She held the baby tighter, prepared to run, though she barely had the strength to stand. The footsteps grew louder, steadier, until a tall figure appeared at the edge of the platform. A man, broad shoulders, dusty hat pulled low, long coat flapping behind him in the morning breeze. He moved with the quiet heaviness of someone used to loneliness. He stopped a few paces away, not wanting to scare her. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He simply looked first at her, then at the baby. His eyes, dark and unreadable, softened almost imperceptibly. "You alone?" he finally asked, voice deep and quiet. The question broke something inside her. A hot tear slipped down her cheek. She opened her mouth to answer, but no words came. She didn't know her name, didn't know where she had come from. She only knew she was terrified. The cowboy knelt slowly, placing himself at eye level. He wasn't a man given to talking. Anyone could see that. But something in her fragile, desperate state made him reach out, gently pushing a packet of jerky and a water canteen closer to her. She flinched, but didn't pull away. "You hurt?" he asked. She nodded faintly. "Someone leave you here?" Another nod, and the baby. Her arms tightened again around the little bundle, but she didn't know how to answer that either. The cowboy watched her closely, reading the blank confusion and fear on her face. "You got a name?" he asked at last. Her silence was the answer. He exhaled slowly, stood, and extended a rough, calloused hand toward her. "Come on, you're freezing out here." His voice wasn't commanding, just steady, safe. "You and the little one. You're coming with me." She hesitated, trembling, then slipped her hand into his dot. In that moment on that abandoned platform, the nameless girl and her nameless baby took their first step into a new life. The moment she stepped inside Cole's house, warmth wrapped around her like a thick blanket. The scent of pine wood, burning embers, and something faintly sweet, maybe honey, filled the air. Her eyes adjusted slowly to the dimmer light as the cowboy shut the door behind them, shutting out the cold and the lingering fear she had carried from the train station. The baby stirred in her arms again, letting out a soft, hungry cry. Cole noticed instantly. "Sit," he said gently, nodding toward a padded rocking chair near the fireplace. The chair looked well used, as though someone before her had spent long nights there rocking a child to sleep. She wondered who, a wife, a mother, a sister. She didn't dare ask. She lowered herself into the chair, feeling her body sag with exhaustion. The heat from the fire seeped into her skin, easing the trembling in her hands. Cole moved around the house with quiet efficiency. Off his coat, setting the kettle on the stove. Pulling down a small tin of goat's milk, he worked without unnecessary words, every movement steady and deliberate. A man who lived alone, she guessed. A man who had learned to fill silence with action instead of conversation. He knelt beside her and handed her a warm cloth. "Clean him a bit," he murmured. "Milk'll be ready soon." She wiped the baby's face gently, marveling at how peaceful he looked even after the chaos of the morning. The baby grasped her tiny fingers, curling trustingly around. Her own, her breath caught. A strange emotion rose in her chest, trying to break free. Was it protectiveness, love, or fear of the responsibility she hadn't chosen? Cole stood nearby, watching her with eyes softer than she expected from a man who barely spoke. When the milk was warm, he poured a little into a small bottle, old, but cleaned with care. "You feed him like this," he explained, handing it to her. Her hands shook slightly as she brought the bottle to the baby's lips. For a moment, the child didn't latch. Panic shot through her until Cole spoke again, calm and low. "Tilt it a bit more. He'll take it," and he did. The baby suckled eagerly, tiny cheeks moving with determination. Relief washed over her, almost painful in its intensity. She blinked, realizing tears had gathered at the corners of her eyes. "You're doing good," Cole said quietly. It was the second time he'd said it. The second time she felt something warm bloom inside her at the sound. She swallowed hard. "Thank you for helping us." She paused. "You didn't have to." Cole shrugged, not pridefully. "Couldn't leave you out there." His gaze drifted toward the baby. World's hard enough without folks turning away. For a moment, silence settled between them. Not tense, not awkward, just comfortable. The bottle, Cole showed her a small guest room, a neatly made bed, warm quilts, a wash basin, a window overlooking the fields. She stepped inside slowly, amazed by the simple kindness of it. "You rest," Cole said, lingering at the doorway. "I'll keep watch." Her lips parted. "Keep watch? For what?" He hesitated just a fraction. "Don't know who left you there. Don't know if they're done with you." Her stomach twisted. She looked down at the baby, now asleep in her arms. A chill ran down her spine at the thought that someone might still be looking for her. But then Cole added, with quiet certainty, "Won't let anyone hurt you here." She met his eyes, steady, serious, protective, and something inside her settled. For the first time since waking on that cold platform, she felt safe enough to breathe. She lay on the bed, the baby tucked beside her. Sleep pulled at her quickly, but before she drifted off, one thought echoed through her mind. This man might be a stranger, but he was the only thing in her life. That didn't feel dangerous. She woke to the sound of low voices outside the bedroom door. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Panic surged through her until the scent of pine, the warmth of the quilts, and the rhythmic breathing of the sleeping baby beside her reminded her she was in Cole's house. Safe, at least for now. The voices outside weren't angry, just steady murmurs. She recognized Cole's deep, quiet tone, and another softer voice, older, feminine. Curiosity and a flicker of fear nudged her out of bed. She tiptoed to the door and cracked it open slightly. In the kitchen stood Cole and an elderly woman with silver hair tied in a long braid down her back. She wore a shawl and moved with the ease of someone who had spent her whole life working hard without complaining. The woman looked up first, her eyes kind and knowing, as if she had expected to see the girl. "There she is," the woman said warmly. "Come, dear, no need to hide." Cole turned, and for a moment she worried she'd intruded. But his gaze softened when he saw her. "This is Miss Alma," he said. "She's the midwife in town. Asked her to come look at the baby." That simple statement made her heart tighten in gratitude. Miss Alma approached her slowly, hands held open in a gesture of reassurance. "Cole found you in a bad way, child. Said you didn't remember much." She touched the girl's cheek gently. "But memory or not, you're safe here." The kindness almost broke her. She nodded shakily, unable to speak. "May I see the little one?" Miss Alma asked. She hurried back to the bed and gathered the baby carefully, bringing him into the kitchen. Miss Alma examined him with gentle, practiced hands, checking his breathing, his temperature, the steady beat of his heart. "He's healthy," the midwife concluded with a relieved smile. "Hungry, but healthy. Born maybe 5 days ago." 5 days, the number hit her like a cold splash of water. 5 days of a life she didn't remember. 5 days she should have known. Something, anything. Miss Alma caught the fear flickering across her face and placed a comforting hand on her arm. Sometimes trauma shakes the memories loose. Sometimes they return when the heart is ready. Cole poured her a cup of warm tea and set it in front of her without a word. She wrapped her hands around the cup, letting the heat seep into her palms. Miss Alma lowered her voice. Cole said, "You were left at the train station, alone. That someone might have hurt you." The girl nodded, throat tight. "I don't remember, but I feel like someone wanted me gone. I feel it here." She pressed a hand to her chest. Cole's jaw tightened. He leaned against the counter, arms folded, but there was a storm in his eyes. "Did anyone follow?" Miss Alma asked. "Didn't see anyone?" Cole answered. "But I don't like what she woke up with. No name, no memory. A baby not even a week old." His voice dropped to a murmur. "Someone didn't want her to survive." The girl trembled. Miss Alma turned to her. "Do you have any sense of a name, a place, a person?" She closed her eyes, searching the shadows of her mind. Nothing, only a flash voices yelling, a slamming door, someone grabbing her arm, a man's angry tone, but the moment she tried to grasp the memory, it slipped away like smoke. "I see," Miss Alma said softly, exchanging a worried glance with Cole. The midwife finally laid a hand on Cole's arm. "You did right bringing her here, but keep a close watch. Until her memories return, we don't know what danger followed her." Cole nodded once, firmly. The girl swallowed hard and held the baby tighter. She didn't know who she was. She didn't know who wanted her. Gone. All she knew was one terrifying truth. Her past wasn't finished with her yet. Morning light filtered through the small window, painting soft gold across the wooden floor. She sat at the kitchen table with the baby in her arms, rocking him gently as he nursed from the bottle Cole had prepared. The house was quiet, except for the crackle of the stove fire and the slow ticking of the wall clock. Quiet should have comforted her. But instead, it made the emptiness in her mind feel louder. Cole returned from the barn, dusting snow from his coat. He paused when he saw her sitting stiff and lost in thought. "You all right?" he asked, the way he always did, simple, steady, not pushing. She hesitated, then shook her head. I keep trying," she whispered, trying to remember something, anything, but it's just blank. Her voice cracked. "I don't even know my own name." Cole stepped closer. "You will?" he said. "Memories don't stay hidden forever. But what if they don't come back?" She looked down at the baby, whose tiny hand rested against her chest. "What if I don't know how to take care of him? What if he's not even mine?" Cole's brows drew together in concern, but he didn't flinch at her fear. "You held him like he was yours the moment I found you. That counts for something, but it's not enough." Her fingers trembled. "I need to know who I am, where I belong, who he belongs to." Cole took a seat across from her, elbows on the table, hands folded. He wasn't a man of many words, but when he did speak, his voice had a grounding force. "Sometimes, what you choose matters more than what you remember," he said. "You're here now. Baby's here now. We deal with what's in front of us." His calmness steadied her heartbeat. Maybe that was why she asked the next question, something she had wanted to ask, but feared the answer to. "Cole, you helping us? You barely know me. Anyone else would have dropped us at the sheriff's office and walked away." He looked down at his hands for a long moment before answering. "Because someone once helped me when they didn't have to." She blinked. "Who?" "My brother," Cole said quietly. "A long time ago, I lost someone. Lost myself for a bit. Thought the world didn't have a place for me anymore." His voice softened. "He pulled me out, made sure I kept going. Guess now I try to do the same when I can." There was weight in his words, pain he didn't show, but carried deep. She studied him carefully. "What happened to her?" she asked gently. Cole's jaw tensed, but he didn't turn away. "My wife died in childbirth, years ago." The breath caught in her throat. The rocking chair, the quiet house, the scars he hid behind silence. It all made sense now. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He nodded once, accepting the sympathy without flinching from it. "Life takes things, gives others. Hard to see the good sometimes, but it's there." She held the baby tighter. Cole cleared his throat slightly. "We need to call you something. A name for now, at least, until yours comes back." She looked up slowly. A name, a piece of identity. Even if borrowed. Cole thought for a moment, gaze drifting to the window where snowflakes fell softly. How about hope? Her breath stilled. The word wrapped around her like warmth. She didn't know if it was her real name, but in that moment it felt like something she desperately needed. "Hope," she repeated softly, testing it. "Yes, I think I like that." Cole nodded. "Then hope it is." For the first time since waking on that lonely platform, she felt like she had something that belonged to her Ivan. If only for now, a name, a shelter, a stranger who wasn't a stranger anymore, and a past creeping closer with every hour she couldn't. Remember, Cole had gone out early that morning, long before the sun even touched the horizon. Hope woke to the sound of the door closing, her heart leaping with a moment of panic, the old fear that someone was leaving her again. But then she heard Cole's steady footsteps crunching outside in the snow, and let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. The baby slept beside her in a small basket Cole had lined with soft quilts. His tiny breaths rose and fell, peacefully. Hope dressed quietly and wrapped herself in the shawl Miss Alma had brought. The house felt colder today, as though the wind was carrying something heavy with it. When she stepped into the kitchen, she noticed the fire had already been lit. Cole must have done it before leaving. The thought of his quiet care warmed her more than the flames did. After feeding the baby, she stepped outside. The cold stung her cheeks, but the air was clear. Cole was standing near the fence line, staring down at something in the snow. His shoulders were tense, different from his usual calm posture. "Cole," she called softly. He turned, and though his expression didn't change much, something sharp flickered in his eyes. "Stay close," he said. She walked toward him, holding the baby close to her chest. As she drew near, she saw what he had been staring at. Footprints, fresh ones, too large to be Cole's, too narrow to be from Miss Alma or anyone from town. And the worst part, they came from the direction of the woods and stopped right at the fence facing the house, as if the person had stood there for a long time watching. Hope's breath caught. Someone was here. Jaw tight, came early, before sunrise. Do you know who? No. His eyes swept the tree line again, but they were watching. Hope's knees weakened. Do you think? It has something to do with me. Cole met her gaze steadily. I don't believe in coincidences. Hope. A shiver raced down her spine. She tightened her grip on the baby, who stirred uneasily at her tension. She blinked hard, trying to steady herself, but fear buzzed under her skin like electricity. There's more, Cole said quietly. He pointed to the ground near the fence post. A small piece of torn fabric fluttered in the breeze, dark, rough. Material, maybe from a coat. But next to it, half buried in the snow, was something else. A thin chain, silver, with a small flat charm attached to it. Cole picked it up and held it out to her. Found this caught on the fence. Hope stared at it. Her heartbeat stumbled. She didn't know how she knew, but she recognized it, a strange, cold recognition that tightened in her chest. She reached out slowly, touching the charm with shaking. Fingers, a single engraved letter, stared back at her. A jolt went through her. Her breath hitched sharply. Something inside her mind trembled, as if a locked door rattled from the other side. Cole stepped closer, steadying her elbow. Hope you all right? She swallowed hard, tears burning behind her eyes. I think I've seen this before. A memory, Cole asked gently. She closed her eyes, gripping the charm. A vague image flickered behind her eyelids. Shouting, a hand grabbing her arm, a dark coat. A chain catching against her skin. But when she tried to grasp the memory, pain flared in her head, and the image vanished. Hope gasped softly. It hurts. I can't remember. Cole rested a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. Don't force it. Hope looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. Whoever left this, whoever was standing out here, they know me, Cole. Cole's jaw set with quiet determination. Then I'll know them too. He took the chain from her and closed his fist around it. No one's getting near you or the baby. Not without going through me. Hope held the baby close, her heart beating. Hard fear and gratitude tangled inside her. The past she couldn't remember was no longer staying away. Hope barely slept that night. Every creak of the house, every groan of the winter wind made her tighten her arms around the baby. Even the fire's soft crackle felt too loud, as if it might alert whoever had been watching them. She kept glancing. At the window, terrified she would see a shadow standing there. Cole stayed awake too. He didn't say much, he rarely did, but he moved around the house with purpose. Checking the locks, stoking the fire, stepping out to the porch every half hour to scan the land. Hope watched him from the rocking chair, the baby nestled against her chest. His calm movements kept her from crumbling. If he feared anything, he didn't show it. Just before dawn, Cole returned from the porch and spoke quietly. Get some rest. I'm here. She nodded, though she knew sleep wouldn't come. As the first light of morning spread across the fields, Hope finally dozed off briefly. But the rest didn't bring peace. It brought flashes, sharp, painful images she couldn't fully grasp. A door slamming, a man shouting, the crushed sound of crying her own or someone else's, she didn't know. She woke with a gasp, sweat chilling her skin. The baby whimpered in response, and she held him tightly. Cole was beside her in seconds. Hope, I saw something, she whispered, trembling. Just pieces. But there was a man yelling, and he wore a dark coat. Cole's eyes narrowed. Did you see his face? She shook her head miserably. No, I just felt afraid. Like I was trapped. Cole exhaled slowly, kneeling beside her. Memories coming back can feel like nightmares. Doesn't mean you're in danger right this moment, but the unease remained, clawing at her ribs. Later that afternoon, Cole saddled his horse. Where are you going? She asked, panic rising. Just to town, he said. Need to talk to the sheriff. Ask if anyone's passed through, asking questions. She bit her lip. You think he'll believe you? He'll listen. Cole paused, then added, and if someone's looking for you, he needs to know. Hope swallowed hard and nodded. She stood on the porch with the baby as Cole mounted his horse. I'll be back before sundown, he promised, and then he was gone. Disappearing down the snowy trail, Cole's ride to town, the wind cut through his coat as Cole rode fast toward Willow Creek. He couldn't shake the image of the footprints. Someone had stood outside his home. Someone had come close to Hope and that baby. He didn't like that, not one bit. When he reached town, he stopped first at the sheriff's office. The sheriff, an older man with kind eyes but a sharp mind, listened carefully to everything Cole said. Anybody matching her description come asking around? Cole asked. The sheriff leaned back in his chair, thinking, not in town, but he rubbed his chin. A stranger came through a week ago, stayed just one night, dark coat, kept his hat low, didn't talk to anyone. Cole's stomach tightened. If he comes back, I'll send word, the sheriff said, expression serious. But as Cole turned to leave, the sheriff added, Cole, you be careful. A man who stalks a woman with a newborn, he's not someone to underestimate. Cole left town with a heavier heart. Hope's afternoon alone while Cole was gone, Hope stayed inside with the baby. Miss Alma visited again, bringing warm soup and fresh milk. She sensed Hope's fear without needing explanation. Memories hurt before they help, Miss Alma said gently. Give them time. Hope tried, she really did. But as she rocked the baby, her eyes kept drifting to the window. Every shadow felt threatening. Every gust of wind felt like footsteps. Then, just as the sun began dipping low, she saw something. A figure at the edge of the trees. A man, dark coat, hat pulled low, standing perfectly still, watching the house. Hope froze, breath locking in her throat. He was back, and this time he wasn't hiding. The next morning, dawn spilled gently over the ranch, painting the sky with soft shades of apricot and rose. Lily woke before Ethan, before even the baby stirred, feeling a strange lightness settle in her chest, something she had not felt in years. Safety, it still felt foreign on her skin. She stepped outside, wrapping Ethan's coat around her thigh, same coat he had given her on the first night they met. It smelled faintly of cedar and sun. The crisp air nipped at her cheeks, but warmth bloomed beneath her ribs. For the first time since she was abandoned at the train station, she allowed herself to breathe deeply. She didn't hear Ethan's footsteps until he was beside her. You're up early, he said quietly, leaning against the porch railing. Lily smiled softly. Couldn't sleep, too many thoughts. Ethan nodded, as if he understood without needing the details. He always did. Silence passed between them, not empty, but full of meaning. Lily, he began, voice firm but gentle. I need to tell you something before someone else does. Her heart tightened. What is it? I sent word to the sheriff yesterday, he said. About you being abandoned, about the man claiming to be your husband. Lily stiffened, fear-cold, choking wrapped around her throat. Why? Because it's the law, Ethan said calmly, and because I wanted to be ahead of whatever trouble he's planning. But I also needed the truth. My truth doesn't matter, she whispered shakily. People like him, they make the lies sound real. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then I'll make sure the truth is louder. She stared at him, this quiet, stubborn cowboy who kept offering her things she had forgotten how to believe in. Trust, respect, protection. What did the sheriff say? She asked, bracing herself. He wants to meet you, Ethan said. Hear your side. He's a good man. Her stomach twisted. She had spent her life avoiding authority, avoiding questions. People like her were not given the benefit of the doubt. They were accused, not heard. I don't know if I can face him, she said, hugging Ethan's coat tighter. What if he believes him? What if he takes my baby away? Ethan's voice dropped to a low, steady promise. That won't happen. Not while I'm standing. Before she could speak, the door behind them opened, and baby Hope let out a soft cry. Lily turned automatically, but Ethan gently touched her arm. I've got her, he said, and he did, lifting the baby with practiced ease, as if he had known her since birth. Hope settled instantly in his arms, tiny fingers curling in his shirt. Something inside Lily ached. In a good way, a longing she had never allowed herself to feel. You're good with her, she said. Ethan shrugged, but his ears went pink. She's easy to love. Lily's breath caught. The words were simple, but they hit deep. because no one had ever said something like that about anything attached to her. "Lily," he said quietly, "whatever happens with the sheriff, whatever comes next, you're not facing it alone." The wind carried the warmth of his promise, wrapping around her as surely as his coat. She realized then that she had a choice, one she hadn't thought she deserved. She could continue running, or she could believe in this man who offered her a name, a home, and a future. Without demanding anything in return, for the first time in her life, she dared to hope. And that, more than anything, terrified her, because hope was the first step toward believing she belonged somewhere, belonged with someone. The sheriff arrived just after noon, his horse kicking up slow clouds of dust as it came to a halt in front of the ranch house. Lily stood on the porch, hands trembling slightly despite her attempts to hide it. Ethan stood beside her, steady, immovable as the mountains behind them. Sheriff Coleman dismounted, tipping his hat politely. He was older, with kind eyes and a face carved by years of sun and responsibility. "Ma'am," he said gently, "Mr. Hayes told me you've had... I'm just here to hear your side of the story." Lily swallowed hard. Her voice felt lodged somewhere deep, trapped by years of fear. "Sheriff," Ethan said, stepping forward, "she's not used to being listened to. Give her a moment." Coleman nodded and waited patiently. Lily finally forced herself to speak. "I run from a husband. I ran from a man who bought me." The sheriff's expression shifted, not shock, but anger on her behalf. "Go on." Lily took a shaky breath. The memories she kept buried clawed their way to the surface. "I was sold when I was 17. No name, no rights. He said I owed him everything. And when I became pregnant, he told people the baby wasn't his, called me a disgrace. Threatened to take her from me." The baby stirred in Ethan's arms as if sensing her mother's distress. Lily's eyes flicked toward her, drawing strength from her tiny presence. Finally, Lily whispered, "He threw me out. I walked for days, starving, trying to reach the train station. I thought, maybe I could disappear, start over. But he followed me." The sheriff nodded slowly. "And that's the man who came here yesterday?" Lily nodded. Shame tried to swallow her, but Ethan stepped closer, not touching her, but standing near enough that she felt his quiet protection like a shield. Sheriff Coleman sighed heavily. "Lily, that man doesn't have any legal claim to you. Not as a husband, not as anything. There's no marriage certificate, and no record of guardianship or ownership." He paused. The words hit her like a physical blow. A free woman. She staggered, knees weakening. Ethan reached out instantly, steadying her by the elbows. She didn't pull away. I don't know what to do with that," she whispered. "I've never been free." "You start by choosing for yourself," the sheriff said gently, "something he never allowed you." A tear slipped down Lily's cheek. She brushed it away, embarrassed, but Ethan shook his head softly. "Don't hide," he murmured. "Not from this." The sheriff cleared his throat. "There's more." I questioned the man. "He left town." "Ma'am was right. He only wanted control. Not you, not the child." Lily exhaled shakily. Relief crashed over her in waves, overwhelming, dizzying, unreal. She clutched the porch railing as years of fear melted into something new. Possibility. Paul Samiti Coleman tipped his hat again. "If you need anything, Ethan knows where to find me." When the sheriff rode away, silence settled over the ranch. Lily turned toward Ethan, who was still holding hope, his thumb gently stroking the baby's back. "You knew he'd say that," Lily said softly. "I hoped he would," Ethan replied. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much?" Ethan looked at her for a long moment, deep, steady, honest. "Because no one should live their life running from someone who never deserved them," he said. "And because I want you to feel safe here, with me." Lily's breath caught. Freedom was hers now, but what she did with it, that was a choice she had never been allowed to make until now. The sun dipped low over the ranch, casting long golden shadows across the fields. Hope sat on the porch steps, baby cradled in her arms, staring at the horizon. The day had been filled with revelations, with the truth finally surfacing, proof that the man who had abandoned her at the train station was no longer a threat. But the relief came mixed with a new, unfamiliar feeling. Choice. For the first time in her life, she could choose her own path. Ethan appeared quietly from the barn, his horse tied and coat dusted with snow. He didn't speak at first. He simply walked over, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the horizon before settling on her. There was no need for words. The silence between them carried understanding, respect, and the quiet promise of something. "More you're thinking?" he said softly. Hope looked down at the baby, who stirred slightly, tiny hands brushing her cheek. "I'm thinking about what it means to be free, what it means to have a life that's mine." Ethan knelt beside her, keeping his gaze steady and calm. "And what do you want that life to be?" Hope swallowed hard, considering for so long her life had been dictated by others, sold, shunned, abandoned. But now, with the baby safe and Ethan by her side, she could dream of something different, something real. "I want safety, and to love someone who sees me as me, not what someone else says I am," she whispered. "And I think I want to stay here with you, with this baby, with a life I can finally call my own." Ethan's lips curved into the faintest smiler, rare warmth breaking through his usual quiet stoicism. "Then stay," he said simply. "I don't need words. You don't need a contract. You just need to choose." Hope blinked back tears. She had spent years clinging to fear, to survival. Now, for the first time, she felt the possibility of happiness, a name, a home, a family, not the one she had been given, but the one she could build. She looked down at the baby, brushing a soft hand over his hair. "We'll call him Hope, too," she said quietly, "because he is the beginning of something new." Ethan's hand brushed hers, a grounding presence. "I think that's perfect." For the first time, she laughed a sound soft but free, without the tremor of fear. It was small, but it carried across the porch like sunlight breaking through clouds. Ethan rose and extended his hand to her. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get inside. Supper's almost ready. I thought we could start building a home, not just these walls, but everything inside them." Hope stood, a weight lifting from her chest. She took his hand, feeling the steady strength of him, and with the baby in her arms, followed him inside. Every step felt lighter than the last, as if the world itself were bending to give her a chance she had never been allowed. Inside, the warmth of the fire welcomed them. The scent of stew and baked bread mingled with the faint smell of cedar and hay. Hope set the baby down in a small crib Ethan had prepared, tucked in with soft quilts. The little one stirred, eyes blinking sleepily, then snuggled back into the warmth, content. Ethan watched her quietly, a gentle question in his gaze. Hope met his eyes, understanding the unspoken words. She didn't need to say anything she had chosen, and for the first time, she felt at home. A home not built from obligation or survival. A home built from love, trust, and the courage to embrace a future she had never imagined. The past was behind her. The future stretched ahead and certain, but hers to shape. And for the first time in her life, Hope could truly breathe.